In academic medicine, we have a name for what's happening now with 5G. This is called, and what has happened with wireless communication, this is called, 5G is an untested application of a technology that we know is harmful. We know it from the science. This is, in academics, this is called human subjects research. Human subjects research is very tightly regulated. You can't just roll out some type of a research project on human beings unless, A, you have their informed consent, so they understand the risks and benefits, and B, you have the approval. Like someone has actually, examined the literature and said, okay, this research project, we believe that it's safe. There's no evidence in the science to indicate that it would not be safe. We have decades of evidence to show that it is not safe.
And 5G actually has the theoretical ability, even at very low power densities, to punch irreparable holes in the food chain. What affects insects affects everything. There is no environmental oversight for such effects to non-human species. FCC exposure standards do not include wildlife. They are strictly for short-term acute exposures to humans, not the long-term chronic low-level exposures that are common today. Current FCC standards adopted in 1996 are also obsolete and inadequate to protect even human health. Simply put, FCC is completely unprepared, unable, and possibly unwilling to oversee 5G for safety, even as it barrels toward us. They are falling back on tired definitions and panaceas long since disproven by science. To make matters worse, recent FCC rulings and numerous industry-friendly bills passed at state and federal levels between 2016 and 2018 removed the last vestiges of local and state review over infrastructure siting, just when we need it the most.
One thing that interests me is that the upper end of the 5G scale is actually so close to the new weapons frequency. There is a new weapon which its nickname is the Growler. It can be sent from aeroplanes or vehicles. And the Growler is used to destroy the neurological and physiological systems in the body very, very quickly.
This is used for crowd control.
Crowd control, or if you have an enemy, or so in one hand you have the industry saying that, well, they won't say it's safe, they will say we have not found any harm. But on the other hand, it is being used as a weapon, and of course the two are incompatible. You can't have something which you can show to pregnant women or children and allow them to use it, and in another use it for crowd control. And to say that the powers are different is absolute rubbish, because with all microwaves, a long low dose can be equally, even more dangerous than a short high dose.
The next slide is going to show you something that might be of interest to students and faculty here. And that has to do with exposure to the reproductive organs. We call them the gonads, I think you say the testicles, and bone marrow. And look here at the radiation as it gets into the groin area. And that's just from having a mobile phone modeled into the pocket. And this, again, is based on normalized SAR with I think we had a dipole antenna. And there are many different variables you can alter in coming up with this kind of simulation.
All of us know in our hearts, we would not knowingly move our family, move our home next to a cell tower, right? We know it implicitly, that there's something just not right there. The fact is that there have been studies talking about cell phone usage, and this is $20 million study by the federal government, because they wanted to make sure absolutely beyond a reasonable doubt that they knew exactly what was happening with cell phone technology and cell phone usage. They found and they determined conclusively that there were carcinogenic effects. Now we're talking about what's going on with the 5G system. Just want to make sure everybody understands. The issue with 5G wireless deployment is not the convenience, because we all like the convenience. It's not the ease of deployment, because it's a lot easier just to pop something up on a tree than it is to actually bury it under the ground and route it to somebody's house in a hardware configuration. The issue is that 5G deployment, because it operates in a higher frequency band at 24 to 90 gigahertz, has to use a higher power density level to get through walls and get through solid objects. And that means you're going to have to put these things every 2 to 10 homes. So you're going to have a cell tower every 2 to 10 homes. Nobody would move next to a cell tower, right? So this is something that is a serious concern. And once again, remember that denial of request or denial of permit request that you can put in? It's going to point back to the acceptable levels as determined by the FCC, not the EPA or not the CDC, the ones who usually take care of health concerns, but by the FCC, which is staffed by former members of the telecommunication industry. That's the fox guarding the hen house.
So 5G is a nightmare. Already we are getting instances of, I think it's 70% less production of fruit, 60% decrease in insects that pollinate trees. It is suspected of already killing cattle and birds, as I've said. But the main problem, as I see it, and it isn't 5G, it is with the other Gs as well, but 5G is going to be much worse because it's going to blend in with the Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi is a known, proven, and used weapons frequency.
But based on this work and other studies that have been done around the world, the United States magazine Consumer Reports recently recommended that nobody keep a phone in their pocket. Nobody. And in fact, if phones were tested in pockets, they would exceed the as-tested exposure guidelines, which is why Telstra has recently issued that advice.
Problem that, as I see it, for Poland and countries that have huge forests, it is known and documented that, especially with 5G added into Wi-Fi, but with Wi-Fi on its own, 5G is going to make this worse. It is known and documented that in 3 generations of humans, only 1 in 8 children can expect to be born healthy. 1 in 8, if at all. It is published that with plants and animals, depending on the reproductive cycle, some species will be totally extinct within 5 generations. That's been published. So what you have is the total destruction and loss of Poland, without a shadow of a doubt. That is published, and it is provable. And one of the other main problems, which is going to carry on, people underestimate how clever and how useful trees are. Now, trees communicate with each other via their roots within the soil. They join roots, they help feed each other. If one tree cannot get enough sugars, they will help photosynthesize the others. They also help control the microorganisms in the soil. Trees also take out a lot of carbon dioxide from the air. And trees do not like microwaves. And you will find the resistance of trees going down as soon as you microwave them. But the other thing is, and not a lot of people appreciate this, if you have inland fish or fish in huge lakes or inland fish, around 70% of a fish is tree. People find that hard to believe because the trees shred their leaves, they go into the streams, they are acted on by microorganisms, they wash down into the water, the microorganisms feed other microorganisms. You start the food web, the fish feed off that, and in fact 70% of a fish is actually tree, from a tree, through the food web. Now, if you destroy the trees, you destroy the fish and the ground soil. But it gets even worse. When you have long, hot summers, trees produce a chemical of molecules which go into the sky. These molecules blend with water vapor in the air, which form larger molecules. And they actually form very whispery, small, loose-fitting clouds. But a whole forest will do this all at once. How the trees communicate isn't known. But it is known, and it is measured, that on very hot days, to protect themselves from overheating, trees will release these molecules, and you will get whispery clouds above your forests, and that provides shade, which keeps the trees alive. The trees take out the carbon dioxide. Now, if you destroy the trees, or you make the trees sick, you get extra carbon dioxide going into the water. The water has microorganisms on its own called coccolithopores. And coccolithopores produce a chemical called dimethyl sulfide. The dimethyl sulfide goes into the air and is the only substance on the planet known which can be used in cloud formation. So if you follow the cycle, if you make the trees sick, which you will do, then you kill your fish, you kill the coccolithopores, who are very low intolerant to carbon dioxide in water because it makes it acid. They are already in the process of dying and changing the cloud structure. So just by affecting the trees that people think are just trees, you actually destroy the fish, you destroy the ocean microbiology, and you change the planet's weather.
When it comes to pregnancy, we're working with Yale University and more than 100 physicians and experts in the United States and around the world who are specialists in pregnancy. And we have been modeling exposure to the head at the end of pregnancy. And at the end of pregnancy, when of course the head, as any woman here knows, is right at the surface, if you're lucky it's at the surface and it's not facing the spine, then you can get the greatest exposure because of course the skin is completely permeable to this radiation exposure. And that's why we've developed the Baby Safe project with colleagues at Yale to advise pregnant women to protect their abdomens from mobile phone radiation, as well as from iPads, which I should add, iPads and other devices are called tablets because they belong on tables. They are tested 20 centimeters away from that big guy that I showed you before. 20 centimeters away. They are not approved to be held in the laps of little children, although millions of kids are having them now in schools because the people involved in educational technology and those involved in public health research are not talking to one another. Because if they were, they would understand that you're giving children a two-way microwave radiating device, and if you must give them such a device for learning purposes, put it on airplane mode so that it's not sending and receiving signals as it does otherwise.